So, Daniel Ricciardo's future in Formula 1 is still unknown, but one of the most well-known figures in the sport is said to have spoken with the Australian driver about a potential opening on the grid. According to ESPN, Guenther Steiner, the team principal for Haas and a cult favourite for his antics on the Netflix documentary series Drive to Survive, approached Daniel Ricciardo prior to the mid-season break. Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen are the two drivers for Haas at the moment. Magnussen is the most seasoned of the two and is under a multi-year contract. It would also be accurate to argue that, despite taking a year off from the sport, he's outperformed the young German. Haas might not be able to pay Ricciardo's staggering compensation, though the Australian presently gets 20.8 million Australian dollars a year, while Schumacher receives less than $2 million US. Following his complicated contract battle with McLaren, former F1 driver Ralf Schumacher admitted he can't think Ricciardo will have another chance in the sport.
News broke yesterday that you're going to be leaving McLaren at the end of this season. How did it happen and how do you feel about it?
You know, obviously when I joined the team and the outcome wasn't desired.
Though Mick Schumacher and Haas are not currently discussing the extension of their contract. Schumacher might leave Haas once the season ends, since the two parties were unable to come to an agreement. As a result, Ricciardo's Haas predecessor may have been the 23-year-old race car driver. Alpine is the only likely team where Schumacher can finish. In this case, the French team's decision between a promising rookie driver and a dependable experienced driver would determine the driver's market. Antonio Giovinazzi, a former Alfa Romeo driver and potential Ferrari driver, will receive 2 free practice sessions during the Italian and US Grand Prix, according to multiple outlets on Monday. In the event that Ricciardo doesn't show any interest and Schumacher departs, it's a strong signal that his return may be imminent. The Italian race car driver is now competing in Formula E after being replaced by Zhou Guanyu before this season. In this unforgiving environment, where success and failure are determined in tenths of a second, any component of your package that is underperforming must be fixed. When you pause for a second, you start to move backward. In McLaren's situation, it was plainly evident throughout 2022 that the gap between Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, which had existed for a large portion of previous season, had not really closed up this year. Ricciardo would frequently finish a few tenths behind his colleague because he was still struggling to have the faith in the McLaren idea necessary to get the most performance out of the vehicle. Such a disparity between the two of them might not be as concerning if McLaren were competing alone, with a buffer against the opposition. Now, CEO Zak Brown of McLaren is extremely optimistic that despite being dropped for 2023, Daniel Ricciardo will still compete in Formula 1 the following year because the rules of the termination do not forbid it. Ricciardo had a strong contract through 2023 and was in charge of any break terms, therefore a termination agreement was necessary for him to leave the team. While the specifics are still secret, there was undoubtedly a sizable payout involved, and Ricciardo will be free to race anywhere he chooses in the coming season. Right now though, Daniel Ricciardo finds himself in a difficult situation. The young Australian, Oscar Piastri, has been in talks with McLaren to join the squad for the 2023 season. There's been a lot of discussion about the subsequent saga between Alpine and Piastri.
He's going to learn a lot with us. He's going to bring us as well his unique expertise because he's a great driver. He knows driving lines better than anyone else. So he will probably be able to bring his contribution to even the senior pilots, drivers such as Fernando and Esteban.
Ricciardo might not have a spot for the upcoming season as things are. When compared to teammate Lando Norris, his McLaren form has been awful and extremely disappointing. It's fair to say that neither party expected him to perform in this way, and the team has stated that they will fire Ricciardo at the conclusion of this season because he has generally fallen short of their expectations. For many, Ricciardo should have been given more time to develop the speed that everyone knows is inside of him. Ricciardo had a clear deal for 2023. F1, however, is not a competition where being courteous yields prizes that are guaranteed. Now, in an exclusive interview with speedcafe.com this week, Ricciardo talked about how he stays motivated during the most challenging stretch of his Formula 1 career. There are undoubtedly a few things. He added, the competition must be one of the few sports in the world where just 20 people participate. The contest only involves 0.001% of the total population. Therefore, it's very unusual to be able to not only belong to that group, but also compete inside it. And so I love that. The highs you experience are actually very high since so much work goes into them. Naturally, you take risks. For instance, if you want to win a race, you haven't just taken a Sunday drive, you've put everything on the line for the team and pushed your body both physically and mentally. The high that follows and the reward are therefore quite fantastic and magnificent. There are a few things, but I could probably go on, because I still think I can succeed and belong in Formula 1. I think I still benefit from it. That's what really jives with me, and the enjoyment of it, as well as the knowledge that any weekend might be there or just around the corner. Monza last year, that was, a week early in Zandvoort. No one was forecasting that, not even myself, so even just the concept of a weekend like that could be 1 week away. It's really cool.
We put in a lot of effort and tried to get through it and understand, things with the car and obviously with myself gelling with it and getting the maximum out of it. But there was, just too many kind of weekends. It was obviously just a bit of a struggle.
Now, Daniel Ricciardo's departure from McLaren Racing at the end of the year, less than a year after he won for the team at Monza, was announced by McLaren Racing CEO Zak Brown as a sad day for the organisation. The team's first victory in 9 seasons came from Ricciardo's triumph in the Italian Grand Prix, which Lando Norris shortly followed. However, in their year and a half of working together, Ricciardo has mostly fallen behind his teammate. As a result, McLaren confirmed today that Ricciardo will not complete his contract's final year, which is in 2023.
We're trying everything we can. Again, it was a disappointing weekend. It's short of kind of Monza and a few races, it's generally not kind of met his or our expectations.
Brown claimed that Ricciardo was fully aware of the team's worries regarding his performance in the months preceding the choice. On good days and bad days, we keep in touch with our drivers constantly. As a result, our drivers are always aware of their position and the quality of our weekends. I would argue that during Daniel's entire tenure at McLaren, we've been very open and transparent, just like we have been with Lando or earlier with Fernando.
Well, first of all drivers are different, right? I've dealt with, Juan Pablo to Fernando Alonso to, our current drivers. Generally, I think, and it's no different than, really any employee in any job, you want to put people in a position where they're comfortable at what they're doing. Drivers put enough pressure on themselves.
I believe he recognises and accepts the fact that we fell short of our desired outcomes. He's as disappointed as we are that it didn't work out because he spent his entire life around motor racing. But everything has been resolved amicably. He understands, and we hope he drives a good race vehicle the following year. Then we want to see Daniel regaining the form we know he's capable of. Early in 2020, Ricciardo agreed to a 3-year contract with the organisation. Brown referred to the choice to end that as a depressing development. It's really intimate. We shared many laughs and we sprayed champagne together. The fact that things didn't turn out the way we had hoped makes today a sad day. I'm going to reflect on our enjoyable days together, both on and off the track, with very warm memories. We're in a business where we need to concentrate on ultimate performance, and we hope and wish Daniel the best, said Andrea Seidel, team principal at McLaren. There's absolutely no animosity between us, everything is really cordial. I believe he also enjoyed himself at McLaren. He's still young, so we hope to see him in a competitive racing car. One day, he might cause us problems on the racetrack, which will be entertaining given how competitive he is. Now, Lando Norris's destruction of Ricciardo contributed to McLaren's defeat by Ferrari in the Constructors' title the previous year, and the situation with Alpine this year is much the same. The early departure of Ricciardo is advantageous for all sides. It enables McLaren to locate a more capable replacement, and it also gives the Australian the opportunity to restart his Formula 1 career with a different team without further damaging his reputation. Ricciardo's retirement may be a viable option, especially if he doesn't want to finish his Formula 1 career in the midfield. During his tenure with Red Bull and Renault, Ricciardo established himself as one of the sport's top drivers, winning 8 F1 races and placing on the podium more than 30 times. It appears doubtful that he will win the F1 World Championship, so maybe it's time for him to try something new, maybe go to IndyCar. A driver with Ricciardo's caliber and attitude would be a loss, especially with a few midfield drives still up for grabs. So, the Belgian Grand Prix, which will kick off the F1 season the following weekend, is slated to go green at 11 PM AEST on Sunday. With that, we've come to an end. See you next time.